Hello again, everybody, and welcome into the Shelby County High School football show out here at Vincent Middle High School this week for our game of the week as the Vincent Yellow Jackets going to host Tuscaloosa Academy in a big top 10 showdown in Class 2A. Tonight we got some JV action happening behind us, so we get the game day atmosphere here on a Tuesday night as we record the show, Andrew. But as we look ahead to what we've got this week, arguably going to be one of the biggest weeks of the season for our teams for many different reasons. And it may not be that every game is going to be the best. There are going to be a lot of good games, but just what's at stake and what each of these teams is going to have on the schedule this week, the chances of region championships, the chances of getting one of those top two seeds at the end of region play this season. This week's going to be a big one for what these teams are going to face. So when you look at it, to me, one of the bigger weeks that we get all season.
Yeah, exactly. I know you said a couple of weeks ago that was going to be the biggest week of the season, but I was even looking ahead to this week when you were saying that.
Every week's the biggest week, you know?
Exactly, every week is. But you look specifically at this slate with how many games on here could decide the top of the region and just how many matchups could be really closely fought throughout the slate. We got 12 games on the slate this week. And it's really looking like an entertaining one from top to bottom. Specifically, you look at the top, Vincent, Thompson, and Shelby County with big tests this week that could ultimately decide whether or not they walk away as region champions or not. And I'm looking forward to see how these teams show up in arguably their biggest game of the season to see if they end up walking away with that top spot in the region. But you look from top to bottom, you got big matchups for Chelsea, a county battle for Pelham and Spain Park, huge close games just up and down the slate. Briarwood, Montevallo, everywhere you look, there's going to be something good for you this week.
Yeah, I mean, you look across the board, Thompson, Hewitt, massive opportunity for both of those teams to get a leg up in that region. Class 7A Region 3, we know how challenging it is. Oak Mountain, another chance to get Hoover this year. They've never beaten Hoover in school history. Another good opportunity this year. Hoover, not quite as down as they were last year, but still not as strong as that dominant program that they were at one point in time. And you never know with Will Odell and some of the athletes that Oak Mountain has. So that could be a fun one as well in Class 7A Region 3. But Vincent and Shelby County, in my opinion, I think playing in games this week that are going to determine region championships. Spain Park and Chelsea 1 week away from an undefeated battle if both of those teams can pick up a win in winnable games this week. So good opportunities for the two of them. And then Briarwood, a team that struggled. They finally get that first win, and it comes in a big way last week against number 4 Leeds. They win, really going away with 31 unanswered points throughout that one. They've got a big opportunity against Corner this week and another matchup that's going to feature a top 10 team there for Corner. So Briarwood, a good opportunity. All those teams, good opportunities, and we've got a strong slate across the board. So, Andrew, let's stop talking about what we've got. Let's start talking about each game individually. We're going to jump in. We're going to talk about all of our games that we've got this week, and we're going to start with a big top 10 showdown right here in Class 2A at Vincent as the Vincent Yellow Jackets host Tuscaloosa Academy. Well, as I just said in the opening segment, to me, this is a game between Vincent and Tuscaloosa Academy that's going to determine who wins the region championship this year. And that's not to say the games left aren't difficult. They are. This is a challenging region. We've talked about that all season long. But this one seems to be it. Tuscaloosa Academy, what they've done offensively this year has been unbelievable. What they've done defensively has been unbelievable. Vincent, on the other hand, their defense has been pure dominant. The offense has grown throughout the season. And now it all leads up to this, a top 10 battle. You've got number 6 Vincent, number 4 Tuscaloosa Academy, and a huge showdown here this Friday night. And Vincent coming off another big win, 31-0 over Childersburg. Defense continued to do what they've done all season long, and that's be consistent and dominant. So when you look at this, to me, Andrew, that's the big thing that sticks out. We've talked a little bit off camera about what Tuscaloosa Academy is going to bring offensively, but both of these defenses right now, 6 points per game that Vincent's giving up, 11.2 points per game that Tuscaloosa Academy is giving up. So you look at that, you look at the way the defenses are playing, the offense is going to be a key factor, too, in how they handle that.
Exactly, yeah. For each offense, it's going to be the biggest defensive test that they face this season. Vincent, in particular, is on an absolute roll. You mentioned averaging just 6 points a game per season. They've only allowed 6 points combined in their last 3 games, including shutouts of Lamar County and of Childersburg. Big key for that, Grayson Gold. On Max Preps, he is listed as the number 3 tackler in all of the state with 91 tackles, an average of 18.2 per game, which is absolutely incredible. And he's helped set the tone for a very balanced defense that has a lot of athletes on it, that has a lot of players who will get after it for this team. One I'm really excited to see in action and how they handle this Tuscaloosa Academy offense that's averaging 41 points per game with one of the best quarterbacks in the state in Preston Lancaster, who's averaging 309.8 yards per game. Really the key here is you're not going to keep either of these two teams out of the end zone. They're both too talented on the offensive side to do so, but the key will be getting the stops when you need to, getting off the field, and also winning the turnover battle, giving your team that short field to be able to capitalize, start putting some pressure on the opposing defense, and really come out, make a statement in this one with some big plays. I really do think that that's going to be what ends up deciding this.
Yeah, I mean, it's the defenses are just so good. I don't think we can overstate just how talented they've been. When you look at what they've done this season, Vincent's given up 18 or less in all games this season, 6 or less in the last 4. 2 shutouts in that span as well. As you mentioned, Tuscaloosa Academy has given up 14 or less in all but 1 game this season, 6 or less in 2. So you look at that, they're consistent on the defensive side of the football. But you've talked about Tuscaloosa Academy's offense. They're scoring 41 points a game, and talking with Coach Weatherford, we've seen a video of what this kid can do with his arm at the quarterback position. Just talk a little bit more about that on the offensive side for Tuscaloosa Academy. Can Vincent match it offensively? And then ultimately, is that too much of a difference, or is Vincent going to be able to overcome that and win this one?
It's definitely a high-flying attack, and one that the secondary is going to need to come and be ready to play at. Lancaster really likes to spread the love with his receivers. 2 of his receivers are in the top 15 for receiving yards according to Max Preps. Ellis Hamiter averaging 112.4 yards per game, and then Keanu Rigo as well, averaging just a hair under 100 yards per game. So you see Lancaster's big numbers at the quarterback spot and what he's able to do in the air. That really puts a lot of pressure, like I said, on the secondary to make some plays. If you can get turnovers, great, but just limit the big plays and try to get off the field as quickly as possible. That really gives your offense an opportunity to capitalize on the other end of the field, and especially if they come out with a strong run game like we saw last week against Childersburg. Over 300 yards on the ground between Aiden Gasaway, Kason Fields, and Jaden Roberts, really all toting the rock well for this Jackets team. That can help milk some time off the clock, give TA a little bit less time to work with, and I think if they're able to capitalize in those opportunities, Vincent has a really good chance to walk away with the victory here.
Ooh, that really good chance.
And I think
but does that mean they do? Okay.
I think they will.
So Andrew goes with a pick for Vincent there. Maybe influenced by the player standing at the fence just a few minutes ago that told him he better pick Vincent, basically. But at the end of the day, I think it's going to be a really good football game. 2 really solid defenses. And you're going to have an offensive approach from Vincent that I think is going to make this a little bit lower scoring and make it a tight football game with what they like to do. Obviously, you talk about the run game and what they had success with last week. At the end of the day, though, I look at Tuscaloosa Academy coming off of a bye week, just how consistent they've been overall this year on both sides of the ball. Vincent's getting there offensively, and we've seen that progression. I think in a game like this against a talented defense, are they going to be able to get there enough to overcome what we've seen from Tuscaloosa Academy and their offense consistently? I think it's going to be pretty close, but I'm just not sure they can get quite there this week. So I think Tuscaloosa Academy is going to edge out a good defensive battle here. But this Vincent team is going to have a good game plan, and their athletes are going to be ready to make some big-time plays. It's going to be a thrilling game, and it's a huge opportunity. No reason that either of these teams should come out on this field Friday night and not be as motivated as they've been all season. I think that gives us a very entertaining one. Andrew will be here for it. He's going to have all your coverage, so he's going to be in for a treat as well. We'll see how it unfolds. It's going to be a lot of fun out here on Friday night for our game of the week at Vincent. That takes us into Class 7A Region 3. The Thompson Warriors, another big game this week and coming off their second heartbreaking overtime loss of the season this past Friday night against Clay Chalkville in a non-region game. Second time this season, Andrew, they go into overtime and they lose by 1 point. You saw this one unfold. I'm going to get your thoughts here in just a second about that, and obviously what they've got ahead this week as they travel to take on Hewitt-Trussville in another game that could be a determining factor in those top 2 seeds there in Class 7A Region 3. Before we get to it, I want to tell you about 3D Air Services. Our friends there have called Shelby County home since 2005. More than just your trusted HVAC company, they're your neighbors, friends, and supporters. They're proud sponsors of the Thompson Warriors throughout the high school football season, as well as the Shelby County High School football show. And they believe in the power of teamwork, dedication, and community spirit, which they carry with them to every job that they do. 3D Air Services, your trusted neighbor, keeping Shelby County comfortable one business and home at a time. We're starting to inch closer to that cooler weather. And as we do, you want to get that heater and your HVAC system tuned up. Make sure to give our friends at 3D Air Services a call, 205-664-3501, 3dairservices.com. Jay Carr, his certified crew, going to take care of you with all your heating and cooling needs throughout this high school football season and beyond. So make sure you give them a call, 205-664-3501. Andrew, that takes us into this game, and you saw this Thompson game play out last week against Clay Chalkville. Their second time this season, they lose by a point in overtime. What's the reaction to that game, and how does that carry over into this week against Hewitt-Trussville?
Yeah, there was a lot to digest from that one. And in particular, we could probably spend another 15 minutes here talking about those last couple of plays and the controversy that was there. But the bottom line that I think I want to focus on, and what I'm pretty sure Coach Freeman would focus on, is the build-up to that ending was not ideal. You can talk about the ending of a game all you want, but if you don't have a good build-up to that, then that's ultimately what makes the difference. Yeah. And quite frankly, this Thompson team wasn't able to get past a really strong defense in Clay Chalkville. We talked about coming into last week how that they were probably going to make the difference up front, and how they really like to run the ball. They tried to hurt you a lot on the ground, and they did both of those things. So a lot of credit to Clay Chalkville for executing that game plan. But Thompson really had to pivot early on. Struggled running the ball in the rain, which that really didn't set up the pass game for much either, with the slippery ball. But then you go into the second half where Trent Seaborn and the receivers were able to get a little bit more momentum going, and make some big plays down the stretch. And then obviously while the defense came up really big on those 2 fourth down stops inside the 6-yard line, at the end of the day, they let them get close enough to that and get a lot of yards and time off the clock on the ground that way, which kind of minimized some of the opportunities that they had on the other end of the field. So I think both sides of the ball are going to take some lessons from that in all 3 phases of the game as well, along with the special teams. But they're going to have to bounce back from that. They can't afford to do that against a Hewitt-Trussville team that's averaging 37.2 offensive points per game. That includes an 8-7 loss to Hoover, a absolute outlier on that schedule. It is against an admittedly lighter schedule, but they still beat Vestavia Hills and then one of the top teams in Class 6A in Gadsden City. You'll need to get the defense off the field quickly if you want to get this offense more time to grow that it clearly needed last week. So I expect a really competitive game. Probably a little lower scoring with both of these defenses averaging under 2 touchdowns per game. But the bottom line is Thompson needs to treat last week's game like a wake-up call. I'm betting that they will, and that's why I'm leaning towards them in a close one.
Yeah, I look at it, and to me, I mean, both defenses are playing great football right now. Hewitt giving up 10.8 points per game. Thompson giving up 13.5 points per game. To me, though, you mentioned it, Hewitt-Trussville's schedule has not been quite as challenging to this point. Thompson losing in overtime to Grayson, going on the road, beating Lipscomb. We know what they've done to start region play. Obviously, a non-region game last week that they fall in by 1 point, again in overtime, to arguably a better defense than Grayson, one of the better defenses in the country in Clay Chalkville, in my opinion, that's given up like 2.8 points per game or something crazy like that. And so they've taken on some of the best defenses in the state, in the country, and I think they're battle-tested from that. I think that their offense, while they have struggled at times, and they're still growing at this point in the season, I think that they, facing those difficult tests to this point, is going to have them prepared for this matchup at the end of the night. And then Hewitt, on the other hand, I don't think that their offense is quite there yet. You look at that Hoover game, an 8-7 win against a Hoover defense that gave up 35-plus to Spain Park in a loss earlier this year. So that tells me that Thompson's defense is going to continue to have success. They face some really good football teams, and they've shut them all down defensively. They've done more than enough to be undefeated at this point in the season. I think that continues. It's another chance at history for the Oak Mountain Eagles this week as they travel to take on the Hoover Buccaneers and look for their first ever win against Hoover in school history. It's going to be a strong opportunity for them with what they have offensively this year in Will Odell in the quarterback position and what he brings to the table. Before we break this game down, I want to tell you about 3D Air Services once again. 3D Air Service is a proud sponsor of us on the Shelby County Football Show, a proud sponsor of the Oak Mountain Eagles. They make this possible each week and are proud to do so. But they've called Shelby County home since 2005. You heard me repeat that several times throughout the season. But that's because they want you to know that they are right here in Shelby County. They're your friends. They're your neighbors. They're going to take good care of you. That's what Jay Carr and his certified team do each week of the high school football season, but each week of the year, 52 years, 365 days. They're going to take good care of you there at 3D Air Services. You can give them a call, 205-664-3501, 3dairservices.com. Again, 205-664-3501. Any of your HVAC needs, heating or cooling, they're going to take care of you throughout the season. And Oak Mountain, in a situation this week where they're hoping to heat up at the right time against this Hoover football team. And Hoover 4-2 right now, coming off a 14-10 game against Parker. Lost that one, right?
Yes.
14-10 loss against Parker. And you look at Oak Mountain coming off a bye week, 3-2 right now. They've gotten a win since that losing streak that they got. They 2-2 to start the season, 2 wins, 2 losses. Bounce back with a win now, coming off a bye week. Do they have enough to be able to get over the hump? And what is arguably for them that most escaped game, the one that they want the most each year right now.
Yeah, they're definitely going to be motivated coming into this one, especially with the way this game has gone in some of the years past, where it's gotten away from them. And they'll look at their offense and say, this is one of our best chances to beat Hoover that we have, as well as against a Hoover defense that is a little bit vulnerable at times. Still, at the end of the day, though, averaging 14.3 defensive points per game, and only gave up 14 points to a really high-powered Parker offense. And despite those 2 losses, despite some of their play throughout the season, I really do think this is a strong Hoover team. A lot more so than the record or some of the stats show. This team can really grind you down. It can get the explosive plays when needed, and it can get some stops too. And ultimately, at the end of the day, this Oak Mountain offense is going to need to keep pace with it, because after seeing what the defense did against Tuscaloosa County, with how they turned that into a firefight against a Tuscaloosa County team that really had not been scoring much going into that game, 42 points in those first 4 games, and then you allow 35, I believe, in that win. At the end of the day, still able to keep pace. Great days from Marty Myricks and Will Odell. But if you have that kind of a day against Hoover, it's going to be a really difficult time to keep pace. And like I've been alluding to, this offense is going to do enough, get a couple touchdowns on the board, make it interesting, but ultimately, at the end of the day, just get outpaced by what this Bucs offense can do against this Eagles defense.
Yeah, I agree. I think that Hoover's going to win the football game. I do think that both of these teams better than they were last year.
Right.
I think Oak Mountain even better than what they were last year as far as when you look at the comparison. I think Hoover's better, but I think Oak Mountain's even better than what they were a year ago. So I do think that this could be a close game, and it really is going to come down to, can the offense make enough plays? And like you said, I think it's that outpace term that kind of comes to mind when you think about the end of the night and what the score is going to be. Eventually, Oak Mountain, I don't think, is going to have enough firepower. I think they've got a lot of good things they can do. We've seen Marty Myricks do it. We've seen Will Odell do it. We've seen several others step up in big ways throughout the season. They're going to have a chance. They're going to have their chances early. They're going to have to stay in this game at the half and then come out with just a sheer determination in the second half. And that's what they did those first 2 weeks of the season. It was all determination. They wanted those games so badly, and I know they want this one. And I think that they're going to come out and show that. I think it's going to lead to an exciting game this year. I said that last year too,
right?
Because Hoover was so down, and then Hoover came out and wiped them off the field. And so if you're Oak Mountain this year, you got to come in with that mindset that we are not backing down. We're going to be ready to go in the trenches, out wide, in coverage, whatever it may be. You've got to win that one-on-one battle. If they come with that attitude, they're going to have a chance against a Hoover team that has struggled this year at different times, especially scoring the football. And I think that's what can make this a close game. We know Oak Mountain's offense is good. Hoover's offense struggled a little bit, but at the end of the day, Hoover's defense is still a really good Hoover defense.
Right.
And that's going to be, I think, the difference there in the second half. They make the plays that they need to. Sneaky close game, though. I think this could be a lot of fun. I think it could be a fun chance for Oak Mountain to be able to pull off that historic win against Hoover. Another great county battle between the Pelham Panthers and Spain Park Jaguars is going to take place at Pelham High School this Friday night. And these two teams so far on opposite ends of the spectrum coming into this game. But I say that, Pelham coming off of that first win of the season and a bye week in between. And Spain Park sitting at 5-0 is a really good football team, but Pelham's in the best shape they've been, at least at this point in the season. And we've seen Spain Park kind of play to their opponent's level. And would not surprise me if this is a sneaky good game as well, with what we've seen from Pelham's growth offensively this season and what Spain Park brings to the table consistently from an offensive standpoint as well. Before we jump in and talk about this game, I want to talk about Scooter's Coffee right there on Highway 280. Great opportunity to get your caffeine fix, your smoothie fix, your blender fix, whatever you need. They're going to take care of you right there at Scooter's Coffee in Inverness and on Highway 280 in Chelsea. So 280 locations, proud sponsors of us on the Shelby County Football Show and the Spain Park Jaguars. They've got that delicious fall lineup out right now, your pumpkin spice latte, your pumpkin chai latte, maple bourbon drinks, so many other things, and obviously their great pastry and food menu as well. Make sure you go visit them, scooters.com, check out what they've got to offer there at Scooters Coffee, and then stop by on your way to a game, Alabama, Auburn, Spain Park, Chelsea, whatever it may be. You're in and out. They've got that drive-through rolling through, and you're going to get taken care of very quickly. So make sure you head to Scooters Coffee throughout the football season to check out what they have to offer. But, Andrew, this game going to be full of adrenaline in this matchup with Pelham and Spain Park. Pelham a chance to make a huge statement in this game. Outside chances of playoffs still there if they can win a game like this. Spain Park, though, they've got some big games left, but they get past this one, they get past Chelsea next week. You're looking at likely the region champion right now, too. So a lot of confidence from the Jacks.
Absolutely, especially with Calera and Chilton County to end out the campaign after those two games. But Spain Park did what it needed to do last week in a 34-24 win up at James Clemens. It was a tough road test for them, and they passed really well. And then Pelham, obviously, getting that win against Chilton County. So both these teams coming in with a little bit of momentum. Despite what the records say, they've got that on their side. And obviously, I'm impressed by what both of those teams did when the games were close in that one. Spain Park did what they've done in games like against Helena and Spain Park and fight for that win at the end. And then Pelham overcoming a tough early tie, 14-14 to Chilton County before they wound up pushing through in the second half and getting it done. But they can't do that against Spain Park, not with his offense averaging 36.2 points per game and starting fast and really dictating the tempo throughout the season. Like you said, though, the Spain Park defense, while it has been strong and gotten stops at times, it has let some teams into the game that they maybe shouldn't have. I do look to that game against Ben Russell a couple weeks ago as a positive. You look at a really strong
team.
It's a really strong team. We're going to talk about them later on when they face Helena. But that's a really good offense that's averaging a lot of points per game, and you only allow a couple of touchdowns to them. That says a lot, I think, about the growth that this team has shown over the course of the season. Credit to Coach Vakakis for getting another strong defense out there as well. But I'm with you. I think Pelham could cause a little bit of damage, get into this game a little bit. But I think at the end of the day, Spain Park's going to come out of the gate and do what it's done throughout much of the season, and that set the tone and really just be too much for Pelham in the end.
And Pelham, I mean, you look at them, this is a team that could be in a much better situation than they are. You look at their losses before they pick up that win against Chilton County. This is a team that could be sitting at 3-2, 36-33 against Chelsea, 35-33 against Calera, and then they pick up that win against Chilton County. They could have 3 consecutive wins coming into this game. That's how close they are to being a 3-2 football team right now. So a little better, I think, than the record indicates, but the schedule also not the most difficult to this point either. But it's that Spain Park offense against that Pelham defense. That's the big thing here in this game. Pelham struggled defensively this year. Spain Park's offense is as balanced as any offense we have in the county this year. They can run the football with 2 running backs. They've got some wideouts that have really stepped up, in particular Corey Barber, and we know what Brock Bradley can do with his arm. I think that balance offensively is the difference there in that game, ultimately at the end of the night. I think Spain Park going to pull away for a win, but Pelham going to keep it maybe a little bit closer there for a little while there in the first half. We'll see if they can come out with some adjustments in the second half that make that one close. So we'll see how that one unfolds, but should be another fun county battle in region play between Spain Park and Pelham. The Chelsea Hornets in the midst of one of their best seasons in school history right now. Great opportunity ahead as you look at this game against Chilton County on Friday night. This is a Chelsea team that's 5-0 right now. This week would give them their 7th 6-0 start in school history if they're able to pull it off. So that's a pretty remarkable thing if the Hornets can make that happen. They've only been 7-0 3 times. If they win this one, we all know what looms ahead. Likely an unbeaten battle with Spain Park for region supremacy there the week after this. So I say that we got to put on the brakes. Don't want to get caught looking ahead at this point with a matchup like this against Chilton County. We know they've struggled this year, Andrew, but against Pelham, they were close in that game for a long time, and you started to wonder, is Pelham going to lose this game? Pelham eventually pulls away and does win that football game. But if you get caught looking ahead in a game like this, Chilton County, a team that could sneak up on you and sting you. Ultimately, I don't think that happens, but I mean, that's just something you got to be aware of.
Exactly, yeah. But obviously Chelsea did what it had to do against Paul Bryant, attacked it right out of the gate, continued to build from there. You start with a big defensive play like Briston Hardy's strip on the first play, and then Chase Stracer and Miller Bowman just kept it going from there with Stracer's setting the tone on the ground, and then Bowman just making the big throws that he had to. Only 9 completions, but 213 yards and 3 touchdowns within that. So
I'm telling you, he is getting better and better each week of the season.
Absolutely, he can make an impact when he's able to link up with those receivers. I'm excited to watch them in action next week. But this is going to be a little bit different from last week, and where it's a game they're going to be heavily favored in, but it's a region game, so this one means a whole lot more. And Chilton County comes in with a little bit of momentum on its side. 39-7 win over Brookwood, who we'll talk about a little bit later. But that Brookwood team is struggling mightily, and even with that 7 spot, they're still allowing 33.8 points per game as Chilton County. So there's a lot of room for this Chelsea team to come out and attack this one. Don't do what Pelham did, like you mentioned, and let this team get into the game early. Just come out from the opening whistle and just attack early, set the tone. And if they can do that, then I really do think that they'll be well on their way to that 6-0 start, which still feels really incredible to say.
Yeah, I tried to set it up a little bit there, like Chilton could pull the upset, and they could. Ultimately, that can happen any week of the season. We've seen it in college football this season. We've seen it in high school football. Seen it in the NFL. But Chelsea is the better football team, and they are the far better football team if they play to their capability and like they have all season. And so that's the whole point. You don't want to get caught looking ahead and not be 100% on your game, because that's where you run into issues. But you mentioned it. These two teams, you look at what they've done so far this season. This Chelsea team's playing well defensively. They're getting better and better each week offensively. Chase Stracer is kind of that highlight running the football, but Miller Bowman's grown into a nice passer. I saw it the week before last, and it's just continuing to get better each and every week of the season. Them becoming more balanced offensively makes this a dangerous team and makes that game the week after this even more exciting, if you ask me. So big opportunity here against a team that they should be able to beat. I think Chelsea's going to get it done. I think they get that 7th 6-0 start in school history with the win over Chilton County, which sets the stage for a big week the week after as they take on Spain Park. It's been a tough 3-game stretch for the Helena Huskies, but you look at that 3-game stretch, a 3-game losing streak, coming off a 35-10 loss to Oxford. 2 of those games really tight. They lose 28-26 to region-leading Spain Park, or tied for the region-leading Spain Park, and they lose 26-21 to Moody, one of the top teams in the 5A classification. Last week, the outlier there, 35-10 loss to Oxford, but a very good Oxford team that's undefeated right now on the season as well. This week, you wipe all that clean. That 3-game losing streak's out the window. You take on Benjamin Russell. You win this game. You're sitting in good shape for a chance at one of those top 2 spots in this region. I can see Andrew chomping at the bit to talk about this game with Benjamin Russell, but we're going to make you wait just a second as we tell you about Consigned Design, our friends there in Alabaster, 72 Fulton Springs Road. They're going to take care of all your consignment needs throughout the year, throughout the high school football season. We're shifting into fall. They're going to have those warmer clothes for you. They're probably going to have some good deals on some spring and summertime clothes as well. But they've got clothes for men, women, and children. They've got jewelry. Anything you can think of, they're going to have right there at Consigned Design. They're going to take care of all your consignment needs there at Consigned Design in Alabaster. Go check them out. You can give them a call, 205-664-7540. Visit them at consigned.design, and they're going to get you situated with anything that you need. They can also set you up with your own consignment needs as well if you're looking to get involved. So make sure to give them a visit or give them a call at 205-664-7540. But, Andrew, now's your moment. You get to talk about this game. I think it's going to be a good game. I've said that throughout the show. So I'm going to keep it going. I really do think it's going to be an exciting one between Helena and Ben Russell. And you look back to that Spain Park game, how close Helena played Spain Park versus how Benjamin Russell fared against Spain Park.
Yeah, that's really what I looked at as well when I was comparing these two teams. I think Helena, despite the losses in 3-game losing streak, those were all 3 really quality teams, and 2 of those games were one possession games. So I think you can take a lot of positives from that, and in particular, how the offense has developed. I've really been encouraged by how this Husky team has developed, with how Jeremy Spratling has grown into a really solid back on the ground, and Nate Ferguson just continues to get that connection going with his receivers. Really excited to see how they match up against the Benjamin Russell defense that has frankly struggled this season. Allowing just about the same points per game as Helena has at 25.7 points per game versus the Huskies 26.0. But you look at what they've done against some dynamic offenses this season, allowing like 42 points to Spain Park. I'm not saying that this team is going to put up 42 points on Benjamin Russell, but there's a lot of holes in this Benjamin Russell team that could really make this into a firefight, especially when you look at what Benjamin Russell has on the other end of the field. A 29-0 win over Charles Henderson that took the rest of their offense up to some pretty big numbers. Their quarterback, Elijah Johnson, is already up at over 1,000 yards for the season. And you have a wide receiver in Cedarian Morgan who has really stepped into that Malcolm Simmons role well, averaging 114.5 receiving yards on the season, number 3 in the state in total yards this year. So the secondary is going to have to really come out and shut Morgan and Johnson down to be able to give the offense that room, like I said, to come out and attack and make this into a high-flying game. I really do think at the end they're going to need to finish the drives on offense in order to keep pace with Benjamin Russell. But I think at the end of the day, Helena is able to do that and flip the result of last year's region title game, get a little bit of revenge on that as they progress through. They're now sitting at the 4 seed in the region. They can make that better with a win this week.
Who did we have at the Spain Park Benjamin Russell game?
We had Nick Young there, I believe.
I can't remember what the key was for Spain Park. Do you recall off the top of your head what it was that made Spain Park so successful offensively in that game?
It really was just attacking them, just finishing drives and being able to just get on the scoreboard at the end of the day. Like 42 points, they were really able to convert a lot of their drives into touchdowns. And then on the other end of the field, it was really just about shutting them down and limiting their impact in that 14 points that they allowed.
Yeah, and I feel like they had a pretty good running night that night as well.
Yeah.
And to me, you look at this kind of game, and Helena's a team that likes to wear you down with that rushing attack. And I think that could be the ultimate difference at the end of the night. So I'm going to go out. I'm going to say that Helena pulls off the win here. I think that they could get that upset. For what it's worth, they would be even in region play at that point. Right. So I'm not sure how much of an upset it is, but we expected Spain Park and Ben Russell kind of battling for those top 2 spots in this region. I thought Helena had an outside chance at one of those top 2 spots, and then you could throw in a mix of other teams that would battle as well. But I do think that Helena's got a good chance to really pull off this win. They're very similar teams. They've played similar opponents. I think they're ready for this one. And I think Helena, coming off of that 3-game losing streak, is ready to prove something and make a point that they're not done fighting this year. And I think they're going to showcase that in this matchup. I think that you're going to look at that rushing attack. It's going to have a strong showing. I think that connection of Torrey Ward, Nate Ferguson could also be a big thing that steps up this week as well. Expect Helena to come out trying to make a statement on both sides of the ball. I think that the Huskies are going to walk away with a huge, huge win that's going to have some big-time playoff implications here in a few weeks. That takes us to the Calera Eagles, who are hitting the road to take on Brookwood this week, and this is a matchup when you look at it on paper. Calera 1-3 overall, coming off a bye week, but coming off of a loss to Chelsea the week before that, 56-28. In that game, offense still looked good. Offenses look consistent throughout the season. They've been plagued by turnovers. Defense has struggled. That showed in the Chelsea game. That's why they lost the Chelsea game. But in this week's matchup, doesn't really look like it's going to matter. taking on a Brookwood team that struggled so far this season, scoring just 8 points per game, giving up 51.2 points per game. Got to expect this is a great opportunity for Calera to get a win.
Yeah, absolutely. The numbers basically speak for themselves. This Brookwood team is struggling mightily, entering this game with an 0-6 record. And Calera has a really big strength in that offense that has looked consistently strong throughout the year. You've got A.J. Johnson there averaging 326.8 yards per game, one of the best figures in the state. So he's really been setting the tone through the air for this team. And I expect that to be the case here. I expect the offense to lead the way with some big plays, really put this defense on its back heels, and then start building out from there. And I expect a really big confidence booster for this defense. And speaking of confidence boosting and building some of that momentum, obviously coming off of a bye last week, you get a win here, you get another winnable game against Chilton County next week. All of a sudden, you're starting to sit a little bit more pretty coming into those last two region games against Spain Park and Helena.
Yep, you look at this game and it's pretty simple. Mm-hmm. Brookwood struggling to score points. They've scored 14 or less in every game, and they're scoring just 8.8 points per game. So even with Calera's defensive struggles, not going to matter that much this week. In the offense, I think, going to come out and put together a statement game. They know this is a good chance for them to really rack up some yards in the passing game, which is what they like to do. I think you're going to see that. I think Calera pulls away for a comfortable big win heading into that last leg of region play. Well, it's the biggest game of the year for the Shelby County Wildcats, Andrew, and you look at this game against Demopolis. Shelby County coming off of their first loss of the season this past Friday night, 5-1 overall now, 28-21 loss to St. Clair County. But at the end of the day, a game that we thought would be close last week. They ultimately lose it, but they battled throughout that game, continued to show me positive signs from previous seasons. Now they go into a matchup against Demopolis, 3-2 Demopolis team. But the region favorite to win this region championship, and a team that in their last three games won all three of those games, 40-7, 41-0, 35-14. Offense and defense are clicking there. Defense has been pretty consistent for Shelby County. Offense overall has been drastically improved for Shelby County. So you got the makings of what could be a really entertaining game, but to me, all comes down to this for the region championship.
Absolutely. And even when you look at the standings, whoever ends up with the win at the end of this week will be in first place in the region. But for Shelby County, obviously, you don't want to lose at all during the season, especially after you start 5-0. But I think at the end of the day, if they were going to take a loss, they'll probably want it to be this one, a one-score non-region game in the middle of your season, to where you can start to get a response and really come out and attack this Demopolis game and really show it, have the best performance of the season in this game. So it really is all about the response in this one. And how do you flip those things that went wrong last week into positives this week? Obviously, 3 fumbles really flipped the game on its head and got them even more behind than where they were. So cleaning those up down the stretch will be crucial, as well as getting stops consistently and making sure that Demopolis doesn't have much room to get in this game with an offense that's averaging 27.2 points per game. Shelby County, the better team on paper, although albeit with a lighter schedule. I do think at the end of the night, Shelby County is going to need to have its best game of the season in order to come out with the win. Not necessarily a perfect game, but they will have to have their best and most complete performance of the season. Offensive line will need to block well. Defense will need to be strong up front, get those tackles for loss, put Demopolis on its back foot and into some third and long plays where they can start getting some really big stops. I think if they do that, they'll have a good chance to win this. But in a close one, I do like Demopolis just because of how battle-tested they are. And it just feels like they're a step above where Shelby County is right now. But even if you lose this one, you're still in the driver's seat for a 2 seed, which is absolutely incredible compared to where they were a year ago.
Yeah, still opportunity at home field advantage is that 2 seed. Ultimately, I think this is going to be a pretty tightly contested game. Like you said, Shelby County the better team on paper. Looking at what they've done so far, Demopolis scoring 27.2, giving up 18.2. Shelby County scoring 33.5, giving up 15.5 points per game so far this season. But Demopolis has played a little bit of a more challenging schedule, and I think a little bit bigger, a little bit more physical overall across the board. But Shelby County's improved in the trenches this year, offensive line and defensive line. That's the ultimate key in why they've had success and improvements on both sides of the ball, but in particular offensively. This week, though, it's such a good football team. coming off that first loss of the season. You wonder how they respond in that face of adversity for the first time, and that's a tricky part when you look at this game to me. I think Demopolis is going to be able to eventually in the second half create a slight bit of separation and win this one. But I look at it like last week's game. I think they're going to be in it. They're going to have those opportunities. It's a matter of how they finish and make those adjustments late in the process. Win this one, Shelby County is going to likely have a region championship this year, which would be unbelievable. Lose it, this is still an incredible season, and everything's still ahead with what they hope to accomplish as well. So big game, but nonetheless one that really I think sets the tone for which is going to be the first seed and second seed in this region at the end of the season. Well, it took 6 weeks, but the Briarwood Lions finally get that first win of the 2024 high school football season and couldn't come against a better team. They take down the Leeds Green Wave, the number 4 team in Class 5A, and they do it with a strong performance. The offense played well, the points truly coming from the offense in the most part in that game. 31 unanswered after falling behind 14-0. That's something earlier in the season Briarwood couldn't have done. It's not a team that was built to come from behind offensively, but now Luke Reynolds has entered back into the offense after playing just a couple of quarters to that point in the season. He comes out, he has 4 touchdowns in that win last week. It was just unbelievable across the board. 150-plus rushing yards, did just about everything he could from an offensive standpoint. And this is a Briarwood team now that's got confidence going into what I think is their biggest game left on the schedule. Before we talk about this game between Briarwood and Corner, I want to tell you about 3D Air Services. Since 2005, they've proudly called Shelby County home. More than just your trusted HVAC company, they're your neighbors, friends, and supporters. Proud sponsors of the Briarwood Lions, proud sponsors of the Shelby County High School Football Show, and just great teamwork that they do there at 3D Air Services. That's what they believe in. Teamwork, dedication, and community spirit. That's something they're going to take with them to every job they do, and that's a reason they're sponsoring several of our teams this year as well. 205-664-3501, 3dairservices.com. Jay Carr and his certified crew are going to take care of all of your HVAC needs, heating, cooling, whatever it may be, throughout the high school football season and beyond right here in Shelby County. But Andrew, want to get your thoughts on this game. Corner, a good football team, looking to battle for a region championship, but Briarwood now confident, and I think a very dangerous team the rest of the way.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know what got into them. Maybe it was you being in the stands or what, but this Briarwood team came to play last week and really got a statement win last week, and I think we're starting to see the impact of Luke Reynolds on this offense. Earlier in the season, they needed the defense to come through, get some points, and really help them be able to get into the game, despite the defense ultimately leaving a really low margin on the scoreboard for them to make up. But it was around this point in the season when Luke Reynolds came into this offense and really gave a spark of life to the run game. Obviously, the offense in a better spot last year than it was this year when he came in. But being back from injury, the impact that he made was absolutely phenomenal. And I think that's going to be really crucial here in this one. You got a corner defense allowing 17.4 points per game. It just allowed its season high 28 to Jacksonville. With that, it'll probably be another defensive game. But I think the key remains the same. Start strong, give the defense some room to work with. But this time around, you have a proven running back in Luke Reynolds who can wear the jackets down enough, set up a couple touchdowns, and ultimately, I think, get this victory over what will probably end up being one of the top 2 teams along with Carver Birmingham within this region.
So Briarwood for you.
Yes.
Wow. I thought you were going a completely different direction. Now we're going to go 2-0 on the Briarwood picks here.
Well, why did you think I was going with corner, Alex? Start explaining.
This is a very good corner football team. They're undefeated right now, coming off 35-28 win over a good Jacksonville team. This is a team that's dangerous, a team that has a lot of aspirations to win a region championship this season. But Briarwood's defense has been consistent. They've been good. The last 4 weeks in a row, they've given up 23 or less in all 4 of those games. It's been the offense that needed to take that next step, and Luke Reynolds gave that to him last week. And that's why I believe in them this week. The only thing is, corner, you know what they're going to do. If one player's beating you the week before you play them, what's going to be the focus? They're going to focus on Luke Reynolds. So they're going to have to find ways to get him the ball in space, do some different things other than him just taking the direct snap and running. If they can find those different things, they're going to win this football game. But ultimately, it comes down to the offensive line. The offensive line is blocking in space. They did such a good job in that last week. The receivers did a great job on the edge. And I think that's where they've got the advantage this week is that physicality, that size, and what they're able to do from a blocking standpoint. And I saw some of the tackles he broke last week. Even if he takes the direct snap and runs straight ahead, tough to bring them down.
Right.
And I think that paired with the defense consistently that they've had this year is going to lead Briarwood to a big win. And second week in a row over a top 10 team in Class 5A, which makes them a very dangerous threat down the road because they will get in the playoffs if they win this game, in my opinion. I don't see them struggling the rest of the way at that point. So huge opportunity for Briarwood this Friday night as they take on Corner on the road. The Montevallo Bulldogs now 1-4, coming off their fourth straight loss since opening the season with the win. They lose 27-7 to John Carroll, a game that we both felt like they really had a good opportunity to get back on the right track in that matchup, and ultimately they just couldn't do it. And it continues to be the offense that struggles at this point in the season, and that's something that's going to have to change as they head into a big matchup with Selma, another winnable game for the second week in a row. That's just going to be determined by how hard they come out ready to play in this game, the attitude, the effort that they're going to have after losing 4 games in a row. Before we talk about this game, though, Andrew, I want to talk about Montevallo Main Street and the support that they offer to the community there of Montevallo, what they're doing there on Main Street, the businesses, the support they get, obviously the events that are happening throughout the year. Tinglewood Festival just a few weeks ago, one of the best festivals in the county, and then just all the support you get right there on Montevallo Main Street. It's such a beautiful area, one of the best Main Street districts in the state of Alabama, and a place that you want to go visit. So if you got some time this fall, it's going to be beautiful down there in Montevallo. Go check them out right there. All the businesses along Montevallo Main Street there in downtown Montevallo. But Andrew, looking at this game, Montevallo and Selma, this is a Montevallo team sitting at 1-4. This is a Selma team that's 3-3, but they've lost 3 in a row. So both these teams reeling and in big need of a win right now.
Absolutely. You got Montevallo coming in off a 4-game losing streak, Selma coming in off a 3-game losing streak with an overtime loss to Northside, and then losses to Demopolis and Fairfield. So a pretty solid strength of schedule there for those 3 losses. But Montevallo, this offensive struggles just continue for them. Just had little to offer the Cavs, and their only touchdown came off a short field from a muff punt. So there just really hasn't been much to the passing game this year, and we've yet to see that run game really recapture that explosiveness that we saw last season, beginning of the season as well. I do think this is going to be another low-scoring game as Selma comes into this one, scoring just 20.7 and allowing 22.7. But at the end of the day, this Bulldogs offense needs to find a way to get in the end zone. Right now, I don't have the confidence in them to do that. I think the tools are there, and ultimately they can eventually put it together. But it hasn't happened yet. So that's why I'm picking the Selma Saints.
Yeah, that's kind of been the surprising thing. I think from a running standpoint, we expected this rushing attack to be a little bit more ahead of where it is right now. And you expected a lot of those athletes to step up this year, too, that they've got out wide at receiver. But they just haven't had that ability to really grow yet as a unit. And this is a big week. They've got to do it this week. This is a team that they're going to have to turn that around against. But like you, it's just they've scored 14 or less in 4 straight, 7 in the last 3. In 3 of the last 4, 7 exactly. And that's not going to be the recipe for success. And while Selma struggled offensively, they have had enough success, sitting at 20.7 points per game compared to 13 that Montevallo is scoring this year. I do think both defenses are pretty good, and that could make this an interesting game with two offenses that do struggle and 2 defenses that have played okay this year. Could make it a little bit more interesting. But at the end of the day, Montevallo's offensive woes, I think, too much for me to be able to have faith that they can win it. They got to go out there and prove it. We'll see if they can do that in this matchup against Selma. That takes us to the AISA and the ACSC, and as you can see, we've changed daylight. We've changed locations, mainly because a little bit of breaking news is we're shooting another segment that we do for the Pelham Panthers. We're out here at Pelham High School now, but there's a little bit of shift in what we're going to have in our AISA and ACSC action. And Andrew, I'm going to let you tell everybody a little bit more about that, but it has to do with that Cornerstone Coosa Valley game.
Yeah, according to Cornerstone coach James Lee, the Coosa Valley Rebels forfeited this week's matchup against the Cornerstone Chargers. So obviously a little bit of unfortunate development for that matchup and everybody who wanted to see that county rivalry play out yet again. So with that, the Chargers improved to 6-0. The Rebels dropped to 1-5, and we will see them both in action hopefully next week as the Rebels travel to Macon East on Thursday. And the Cornerstone Chargers are in action next Friday night. But as for the ACSC, we've got a really good matchup here on our hands as Evangel takes on Chambers.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a great game. Number one team in the AISA in 11-man play is Chambers Academy, and just a ton of success traditionally. Again, having great success this year, sitting at 5-1 overall. Evangel sitting at 6-1, and they've played some talented 11-man teams so far this season. And the defense, to me, has been the difference. That's been what shows up in those 11-man games. The offense has started to click in these 8-man games the last few weeks, and maybe that's something that helps them out in a matchup like this. But taking on this Chambers team, it's got to be that defense again.
Absolutely. It will need to be, especially with a Chambers offense that's averaging 40.3 points per game and has scored 123 points in Class 3A play in the AISA. So absolutely head and shoulders the class of the AISA 11-man teams. So Evangel will need to come to play for this one. Obviously, you looked at that Banks matchup as a positive, taking a borderline top 5 team to the limit down there at Legion Field earlier in the year. And I feel like the Lightning have gotten a little bit more momentum with those 8-man games that they have played, getting off to a strong start in ACSC play. But this one's going to be a challenge. There's no real way around it. Chambers has an incredible defense as well, allowing just 13.8 points per game on that end. And they have some really good quality wins on their resume as well. So for the Lightning, they'll need to keep their focus and probably play their best ball of the season to get out with a win in this one. But regardless, this game should definitely test them a little bit more before they hit the meat of their ACSC schedule in the next 2 weeks, taking on the likely number 2 and 3 teams within that conference in Southern Christian and East Central. I picked Chambers here, going with the Rebels on this one. But if the Lightning are able to compete here, man, that really does say something about where they are as a program.
Yeah, and like I said a minute ago, I think the defense is what's going to give them a chance to do that ultimately at the end of the day. The offense, I think, has progressed. I think they're going to have opportunities to score some points, but, I mean, it is a good Chambers football team, as you'd expect, scoring north of 40, giving up less than 15 this season. I expect Evangel to come out, play well defensively, keep it a tight game for a while, but at the end of the day, Chambers, number one team in the AISA in 11-man play. They're used to these situations. They're going to come out ready to roll, and I think that they're going to pick up a win in this one as well. But I do think it could be a tight game, a lot tighter than you may expect when you've got a traditional 8-man team going to take on a traditional 11-man team, and that's what Tim Smith and his squad do so well. They're able to go back and forth week in, week out, play those different levels of competition, and there's not much drop-off at all. So expect a fun one. It's going to be a lot of fun to see a challenge like this. Only going to make Evangel better, win or lose, as they play down the stretch here in ACSC play. Before we talk about our SCR Stars of the Week, I want to tell you about a consistent star throughout the season, and that's Bertoloni's right there in Calera off of I-65. As you head into these cooler months, a place that's going to get you a good, warm meal, hearty meal that's going to take care of you. Nothing you want more this time of year, to me, than a good Italian meal, and Bertoloni's going to take care of it. They're well-known, family-run restaurant, one of the best in the state of Alabama. They've been voted Shelby Living's best pizza, date night restaurant, and upscale restaurant all this year in 2024. They've got a great list of traditional Italian meals. You look at their spaghetti, you look at their lasagna, chicken parmesan, so many other things. And then that pizza is something to write home about. It's incredible. It's the reason they're voted best pizza. Go find out why they're at Bertoloni's in Calera, right there at 209 Supercenter Drive, right off of I-65. And if you go, you can't get out of there without trying one of their delicious cakes. Known for their strawberry cake. It's unbelievable, but they've got seasonal specials as we head into fall. You can get all their cakes by the slice or whole. You want to make sure that you try them out. So make sure you give them a visit. See why Sonia Bertoloni and her crew are the best around right there at Bertoloni's in Calera. All right, Andrew, that brings us to the Stars. We're going to talk about them now. One of them going to be right here at Vincent High School to kick it off for you. Then we'll come back, and I'll give you my rundown of the 4 that I have in addition to the 4 that you have.
Yeah, and that's Grayson Gold, a guy we mentioned earlier within the Vincent segment as one of the best consistent tacklers within the state. Was right in line with his average last week, 16 tackles for an overall great Vincent defensive performance, allowing just 67 total yards, and 35 of those came off of one play. So really big day for the Jackets as they shut out Childersburg. They're going to need another big defensive showing if they're going to beat Tuscaloosa Academy this week. Speaking of the defense, I want to shout out the Thompson defense for making 2 of the biggest plays that I saw last week. Those 2 fourth down stops near the goal line that really set up this team to be able to stay in this game and directly off of one of those 4th down stops was right when Trent Seaborn and this offense went back to work. Speaking of Seaborn, he went 15 for 23 for 226 yards and a touchdown. Had to overcome some rough spots earlier in the game, but stepped up when the run game was quiet with R.J. Evans as well as Mosley and Knight in there as well. Spread the love to a bunch of different receivers. For the way he stepped up and willed this team into an overtime result. He is one of my other stars of the week. And you also have to give some love to the run game. Well, Anthony Palmieri didn't come close to that school record he set against Northside. 231 yards off 31 carries is nothing to sneeze at, and he definitely was a big part of why Shelby County was able to stay in for a while against St. Clair County. So big props to him. Curious to hear who your 4 are.
So you build off of those 4, and you talk about the defense of Vincent, the defense of Thompson, how well they played, and then you flip to the offense. You look at what Seaborn and Palmieri did. I'm going to kind of build off of those last couple that you talked about from an offensive standpoint, and then end with a good defensive note. But I'm going to start with Luke Reynolds and what he did for Briarwood. 168 yards and 4 touchdowns in his return. Played it only 2 quarters before that this season, and he comes out. He helps them score 31 unanswered. He had all 4 touchdowns in that game. Had a field goal as well. He was unbelievable. The runs he made, I mean, I just can't even explain one of them where he broke literally like 10 tackles all the way up the sideline in a remarkable run. 168 yards, 4 touchdowns from him. SCR Star of the Week there. Brock Bradley, not his biggest night. Not his biggest night passing, but 9 of 14, 98 yards through the air, 2 touchdowns to Ryan Brazil, but then 2 rushing touchdowns as well. It's what he did with his legs and the ability to really open up the offense there that made him dangerous, the reason he's another SCR Star of the Week this week. And Chase Drasner, another consistent name that we see on this list just about every week right now, but 25 carries, 207 yards, and 3 touchdowns for Chelsea against Paul Bryant in that win. He's going to be key this week as they look to get another big win against Chilton County, and then obviously with what's looming in that battle against Spain Park, where they're going to have to score some points the week after this. So big performance from him, but consistently that Chelsea defense has been unreal throughout the season. Briston Hardy forced and recovered a fumble on Chelsea's first play in that game, so a big showing from him. The defense continuing to play well. Guys like Briston continuing to step up each week of the season as well. And win this week, go in and beat Spain Park in a couple weeks. That Chelsea team going to be a lot of fun to watch down the stretch and what the opportunities that they have to chase down school history. So that's going to do it for the SCR Stars of the Week segment. We've got a big week as we jump back into region play. I expect probably a little bit longer of a list even next week with some pretty incredible numbers as we continue to see guys stepping up each and every week.
Now
that brings us to the end of this week's Shelby County High School football show. It's been another great show. A little bit of maneuvering with the game taking place. It's getting dark out here, so we've handled a little bit of adversity here. I think you're going to see some teams handle some of that same adversity this week. Our adversity a lot less worrisome than theirs. Obviously, I don't have to go get run over by a 250-pound linebacker or something, so I'll take it. But it's going to be a fun week, Andrew. We've got a lot of big games like we talked about, possibly the most determining game or week of the season when it comes to who's going to win region championships and get those top 2 seeds going into the playoffs. So when you look at that, what's the big thing that sticks out to you is this week's bold prediction going into Friday night?
my bold prediction is that the Braves will still be playing baseball on Friday night. I'm just kidding.
And my bold prediction that you're going to devour some chicken fingers and cheese fries right here at Vincent's as well.
Also, probably not that bold of a prediction, but sticking with Vincent, they are my bold prediction. I do think they will walk away with the win against Tuscaloosa County. They're going to need to bring their best football to do it, but I think this Vincent team is just trending in the right direction and will really be able to come out here with the best chance that they have to get a statement win. If they do, what a statement it will be. And I really do think that this is really where they start to break through that statewide scene to where the state already respects them as one of the top 6 teams in Alabama in Class 2A, but I think they'll really start respecting them as one of the state title contenders if they're able to get a win in this one.
Yeah, and last week I hadn't really done a great job of keeping track of our bold predictions. I have no clue where we stand on the season. May have to go back and watch and figure it out. But last week I know I got Briarwood over Leeds as my bold prediction.
Right.
This week we're going to do it again.
Okay.
In the show, I may have picked the Hoover Buccaneers to beat the Oak Mountain Eagles. Bold prediction, give me the Eagles.
Okay.
Oak Mountain makes school history and beats Hoover for the first time ever. That is my bold prediction. Obviously differs from my actual prediction, so I play a little bit of a safety net there.
Yeah.
But boy, would that be something. And I'm going to call it as a bold prediction this week that there is an outside chance the Oak Mountain Eagles get that done. So we'll see how that unfolds. But that's going to do it for this week's Shelby County High School football show. We'll have you covered this Friday night. Make sure you're following along on X at Andrew T. Simonson, at Alec Etheridge SC. We'll have the game covered throughout the night. We'll see you for our Facebook Live, Instagram Live, or Twitter Live, and YouTube Live pregame show coming up on Friday night as well. Thank you to all of our great sponsors. We appreciate everything that they do for us in making this possible. We're excited to see you later this week. Until then, that's going to do it for now. Alongside Andrew Simonson, I am Alec Etheridge.